fight coming up this weekend at strawweight, and if it was a radio announcer that was really trying to get the crowd jazzed up, like especially in our small town of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, would probably the Clash of Styles coming up. Virna Jandiroba taking on Angela Hill. It's Overkill Hill, who hasn't been overkilling anything. If anything, she's been undercooking it. She's 1 of 4 in her last 5, and for Hill, I mean, some of these fights are really, really close. We got to admit that. 3 of them are losses by split decision, 1 of them by unanimous, and the one win that she has is a really good one. I mean, for Hill, it just hasn't been representative of the fights that she's had lately. Even look at her last fight. She loses it by split decision to Amanda Lemos. All depends on how you consider that first round. I mean, to you, was it a 10-8? Did you think the knockdown did enough and all the control and everything that Lemos did in the first round of that fight?
I thought it was.
So did I. So if I look at it, then I have it as a draw. 10-8 Lemos, round 2, round 3, 10-9 for Angela Hill. But regardless, it's a loss on Hill's record. She's got to pick up the pieces and take on another Invicta strawweight champ from the past. Both these women, former champs, and for Jandiroba, it's been, I guess, a little bit more recent, and it's been a weird run for her in the UFC. I mean, she's 3-2 in the 5-on-in. You consider the 2 losses, 1 to Mackenzie Dern, relatively close fight there. 1 loss to Amanda Ribas, where she kind of did the Lemos in that one. Gets the knockdown in the first round, looks really good, and then loses the second round and loses the third round. And it's got to be kind of that Spider-Man meme when they see each other this week, because Amanda Ribas has a fight coming up against Katlyn Chookagian. You consider Virna's wins, Mallory Martin, big finish win there, a finish win over Felice Herrig, and a finish win over Kaneko Murata, Japan's submission ace and finishing ace, and a very exciting fighter. But again, these two possess clashing styles, if you will, and a very surprising Jandiroba who has seemed to improve with her striking as this short UFC tenure has gone on.
She does seem to have deceiving power in her hands, and this is the weird thing, and I'm going to be surprised to see what these fighters look like when they initially face off, because they're both listed as 5'3". Angela Hill must be the tallest 5'3" ever, and Virna must just be the shortest 5'3" ever. I don't believe whoever took that stat. I just don't. I think Angela Hill is much bigger, and I'm very curious to see what they look like when they do face off, so that's going to be the first thing I have to say. Here's the thing with Angela Hill. You're right. A lot of her losses are close, but a lot of her wins are razor close too. She almost suffers from like Joanne Wood-itis, if you will, where it's like, okay, Angela, if you want to win a perfect fight, how do you want to do it? Her is probably like split decision. I'm just going to slightly outvolume my opponent and hopefully stay on the back foot.
Fool those judges.
It kind of is the case, and I know that it seems like I'm trying to sell you low on Angela Hill, but that just is the case. In some of her worst losses, they are really close, but some of her best wins are also very close. That has to be said. I just never really know where to gauge Angela Hill when she's fighting anybody, because if she's fighting someone with a lot of power, then okay, she's going to be at a disadvantage. You normally do see that in her fights. Then get on the inside, they'll make her pay a little bit more than what she can do to her opponent. But if she's fighting someone who doesn't have a ton of power, and for Virna, her striking has gotten better. She has dropped, she dropped Amanda Ribas, which was very surprising to see, and she won by TKO in her prior fight to that, so you might think she does have big power. I'd say she might have a slightly more power in this matchup, but I don't think it's enough to just say, wow, if she gets on the inside of Angela Hill every single time, she's going to be able to win these exchanges, because Angela Hill has deceiving elbows. She is one of these fighters who's realized, okay, I have long punches, so a lot of my opponents try to get on the inside of my punching range. She will use elbows as a way to counter her opponents getting on the inside. I just worry if Angela Hill can get back up to her feet if Virna does get an offensive takedown in this fight, because I think that's the one area that Virna is quite a bit stronger in than Angela Hill. Virna in her 2 losses in the UFC too. It is kind of unfortunate.
Three. She also has a loss to the champ, Carlos Esparza, in Jandiroba's debut with the
That's true. I forgot that was so long ago. It's wild that she's been in the UFC for as long as she has been, because it feels like she got called up from Invicta yesterday, but I guess it has been years at this point. But for Virna, she has lost to people who do what she does, but they just sort of tick up the sliders a little bit. Like, Amanda Ribas does everything Virna does, but I'd say she's a slightly better grappler, especially with her slickness on the ground, and her cardio is a little bit better. And with Mackenzie Dern, her and Virna, they're very, very similar, but Virna's good at jiu-jitsu, and Mackenzie Dern just so happens to be great at it. I just feel like for Virna, if she got matched up a little bit differently in the UFC, there's a version of her who's probably like borderline top 5 right now, if we're all being honest. It's just her losses have come to people who are at the top of the division, whereas for Angela Hill, I know her losses have have been close, but I do feel like she is starting to slow down a little bit in her career. She is 37 years old. She is 13-11, and again, her losses don't mean that much, if we're being completely honest. Like, the 13-11 is quite deceiving, but again, she hasn't been getting better with time, and I do feel like we are seeing her start to slow down at this stage.
She did have a bit of a run when she came back, and not to say that it was surprising, but it really was nice to see, especially just kind of with the way things kind of left off with the UFC before she went back.
Completely written off, exactly. That's a good
100%.
point.
So I love to see that. The one stat that's very telling, again, Virna Jandiroba, very, very credentialed on the ground. You know how good her submissions are. You've seen them. The Felice Herrig win won a performance bonus at UFC 252. It was a sub 2-minute submission. For Angela Hill, fight of the nights. There's been 3 of them. One against Jessica Andrade. Did she win that fight?
No, but it was a barn burner.
Knocked her down. One against Michelle Waterson and the one against Amanda Lemos back in December. And yeah, Hill got knocked down and then kind of held down by Lemos, but rallied hot and heavy in the second and the third rounds. Really looked good. Picked up the offense. Really did start to find her groove in those last 2. And if it was a 5-round fight, who knows? But it wasn't. So when it does come down to the odds for this one, Virna opened a -140 favorite. She's -161. For Angela Hill, opened a +120 at a +133 right now. If we have a look at the Topology votes, they are surprised to us as they are to you. I'm going to say over under 65% for the Brazilian here.
I think they'll be over.
I think they're going to be over. Slightly under. 562 total votes. 64% Jandiroba. 75% have her to win by decision. For the 36% that have Hill, 87% by decision. And for Angela Hill, very, very good takedown defense throughout her entire UFC tenure. It's at an 87% clip. Numbers on a page are fun to look at. So is the fact that her significant strikes landed per minute are 5.56 to Virna's 2.81, but it only takes one takedown to get rid of that number. So see how people can play the number game in their favor. I just did and then contradicted it so you people can see how
stats make no sense in MMA, guys.
Numbers don't make any sense. But I think when this fight takes place, Angela Hill decided advantage on the feet. Virna does have power, but it's kind of a little bit delayed. She can kind of put herself out there with some of those shots, and she's a little bit stiff. So I like Angela Hill to grind out a decision in this one, which is strange for me, because normally I go with Virna in just about every single fight she's in.
This is probably going to be a split decision no matter who wins. It's going to be the ground control of Virna versus the overall volume of Angela Hill. The frustrating thing about Hill is that she could win this fight based on her volume on the feet. Not a lot of her strikes land clean. And boy, is it frustrating to watch. We're going to talk about Katlyn Chookagian later, and that's a whole other point. Sometimes judges can be misled by shots that land on like the arms and the hands in MMA especially. And I do feel like Angela Hill sometimes benefits from that, and not a lot of her shots do get through. Again, the wins are wins and the losses are losses. I do feel like if Virna is able to get the takedown, she will be able to hold Angela Hill down, and that's why I'm going to pick Virna in this matchup. I do think that if she is able to secure those takedowns, it's a big if, don't get me wrong. I just think if she's able to get on top of Angela Hill, she might not be able to get the submission, but she'll at least be able to control her enough to start winning rounds.
We're split on the pick. Matt going with Kakara, Virna, Jandiroba. I'm going with Overkill Hill to kill it in the fight, I guess. I mean, listen, it's a nickname, it rhymes, and it's a big-time fight in the strawweight division. We got a big-time fight in the light heavyweight division in the main event. It is Aleksandar Rakic returning, taking on the former champ, Jan Blachowicz. You're not going to want to miss it. So keep locked in with Sneeze Night Picks. As we always say, let's get into it.